everybody, I'm Adriana from The Good Cycle, and this is my first interview for the channel, and I'm really excited because I'm here with my beloved teacher, Jane Hardwicke Collings.
Oh.
She is the woman that has basically taught so much of what I know about this topic, and it's such an honor to be here with her as my first interviewee.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you very much, and good on you for doing this. You know, I really honour, respect, am inspired and admire you for making the effort to bring this information to the world.
Thank you. And I think I'd love to start this conversation by asking, Jane, I was explaining in my first video how much of a mess we are in, and so many of us don't even recognize, but we live in a world that basically the majority of people doesn't really like the menstrual cycle, doesn't like menstruation, doesn't really like the idea of giving birth, it has this bad connotation. And then menopause, oh my goodness, menopause is almost a bad word. So I really wanted to ask Jane, from your perspective, all the work you've been doing, so how do we get ourselves into this mess?
The root of our problem today, as I see it, is that for thousands of years, women's bodies have been seen as with a lot of negative connotations.
Yeah.
So dirty, unpredictable, unable to understand even, and the connection between the moon and a woman's cycle, and it's too much mystery and perceivable kind of magic to it, that women and their bodies, particularly the menstrual cycle, have been relegated as an unwanted, undesirable experience of the female body, where in actual fact it's like the connection to the goddess. It's like our menstrual cycle rules our lives, whether we want it to or not. And like even the way this shows up now is this huge pharmaceutical industry spreading and promoting drugs that stop menstruation. Because, why would you want it to interfere with your life? And, for women in the menopausal phase, there's real pressure for those of them who are working out in the world to take hormone replacement therapy so that they can keep up with the boys. It's so when a function of the female body is seen as undesirable, then that means we take that on. And then we modify our lives and our beliefs and our attitudes about ourselves based on what the culture says, and we push away our fundamental physiological femaleness to our peril. To our peril, and it's reinforced over and over and over. And just as a little side bit, it's also how we're treating females, women, is also how we're treating the earth, which is the feminine, and that's pretty bad.
So what do you think we can do to maybe start this change? I know you, and there's so many women teaching this stuff, but what about us out there, everybody? How can we start everybody playing their role? How do you see us shifting this?
Well, I think the thing that has called women back from this anti-female, and not just female, feminine, and against the female body, is our bodies themselves. So over the years of all the separation from the feminine, our bodies have still been functioning the way they do. And that is really affected by our attitudes and our beliefs and our fears, of course, which is where we see it playing out in childbirth and menopause and menstruation. But I think if we connect with our bodies, then the magic starts to happen. So one of my main focuses in this Reclaiming Feminine knowledge and power has been to focus on the menstrual cycle, because I think it's one of the simplest ways to affect change.
Yeah.
So we teach girls and their mothers about menstruation and what lay ahead. And that's actually not that hard, because in this current climate there are a lot of women with daughters who don't want their daughters to go through what they went through. They're awake and aware enough to know that that damaged them, and they're looking at it from a perspective as a mother and not wanting that for their daughters.
Yeah.
So there's a growing community seeking alternatives to the way they grew up with their menstrual cycle, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And we can help there by speaking of the menstrual cycle for all it's worth, not just for its inconvenience, you know, because there is so much spiritual practice available to a woman by paying attention to her menstrual cycle. So simply that, I think, is one good thing. And also, so it's education. Education. And also, I think, to welcome our daughters into womanhood, because that's what did happen. And now it doesn't. It does some places, it does in some traditional cultures still doing it, and it does in some enlightened communities, but mostly it doesn't. And again, we know that whatever happens at a rite of passage teaches you how your culture values the next role you're going into, so in that case womanhood, and therefore how to behave. So if we can do intervention there and encourage the girls to think, oh,
I'm powerful.
My body, you know, my body works, not my body is a problem. And that their menstrual cycle will teach them everything they need to know. And then I think that is, because one thing leads to another, preparation for birth. And that we know that she who was initiated into womanhood at the altar of Menarche is she who turns up to the birth altar to birth herself as a mother. So she takes everything that she learned at Menarche about what it means to be a woman and therefore how to behave, practices that through her menstrual cycle in whatever way she does, and then is that at the next altar of transformation, becoming a mother. So if we can help these girls who are the mothers of the future to make that pathway empowered and knowing that their bodies work instead of thinking that their bodies don't, I think change will happen with birth, which means that more babies will be born gently.
Yes, of course,
which will mean that their lives are less complicated. More of the people who work around birth will meet these women who are saying, thank you for your input, but my body will tell me what to do.
And it'll start a positive cycle from that.
And then menopause will be the natural progression of the journey of a woman's fertility, rather than the, oh my God, I'm now useless or whatever.
Which is pretty sad. This is amazing. This is such good stuff. And you know, I'm planning on not doing very, very long videos here at The Good Cycle, just so we can inspire you, but you know, not bore you, because that's a lot of information to a lot of us, you know. We're gonna leave it there, but I'm gonna ask Jane something else for another video. So if you want to know more about Jane, I'm gonna post her link below, and you can ask questions, you can make comments, and we'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much. This is so good. I could be here. I could stay here forever, you know, but I have to control myself. Is there anything burning to be said? No?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of love, and see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.